Welcome everyone. Today is day 5 of the Close Personal Protection course. It is our culminating exercise today, the full mission profile. It is going to be rough today, but I think the students are going to do fantastically. So today we kick off when the clients land in their private jet.
And it was a signature FBO, I believe, in San Antonio.
Yep.
The funnest bit about today is what the students don't know.
Yes.
So we've given them a briefing on their full mission profile, and we're given them a bunch of locations that they've done advances and recce's for. We've given them a timeline of appointments, which they believe is going to be pretty rock solid. What they don't know is about halfway through the day, we're going to start to derail things pretty heavily for them. Nothing we're doing here is outside of real world experience for a low to medium risk CP task. So we're not throwing in assassination attempts and kidnap for ransom and IEDs and all that sort of stuff. These are just the things that we've genuinely faced in our real world experience. Things that can just derail the day and put people on edge, induce some stress, add some logistical challenges, and just get people thinking and see how they're going to overcome these new set of complexities, particularly when it's thrown at them last minute. So going back to the beginning, we did an FBO pickup simulating a real world collection from private jet base. We then moved to a scheduled meeting at a premier hotel in San Antonio. All very structured. That all went very smooth. Team's driving was excellent. Customer service was excellent. Introductions were excellent. We did start to introduce some conversations, maybe political conversations, maybe some inappropriate conversations, just to test whether participants would take their level of engagement and professional boundaries. We pushed on to a second meeting, giving them, I guess, confidence that we were following the schedule. They delivered that really well. Again, foot movements were great. Their advances were fantastic. They had valet parking organised. They had points of entry organised. They had reservations made for us. So up to that point, everything was fantastic. From there, we went to move to the Alamo, so a tourist attraction here in San Antonio. I was really busy there. Also, by this time, late morning, it had started to get right up around that 100-degree mark. So we threw in a challenge of a 10-minute or so walk that was scheduled as a drive, but almost with no notice, we threw in that we were going to walk that leg of the journey and push them into dynamically rethinking how that was going to look for them, where they could stage cars, how they would move the cars to follow the walking party. But really, to that point, sticking to the theme of the day and sticking to the structure we'd given them. One thing we'll throw in is that the characters we'd chosen to role play were real world characters, and there was some clues thrown into that scenario. So the backgrounds of some of those characters, they might have found that there was a history of illicit drug use, a history of domestic violence, a history of night clubbing and that kind of behaviour, which might have added, given them some clues to how the day might have progressed. We'd also thrown in a couple of activities that were probably very unlikely to occur, based on the profile of the clients, which obviously, as the day derailed, we didn't end up attending.
No, we didn't. Probably a good time to introduce our derailer. We brought Tom out from Australia. The students have not seen him, met him.
So it was from about lunchtime when we met Tom that things started to go wrong. We'd planned a lunch down on the San Antonio Riverwalk at a restaurant. The team had made reservations for us for that.
Mm-hmm.
We threw the extra person in. And at lunchtime, as we got there, the old fashions started to flow. So I think we had a good 3 or 4 drinks over lunch. And that was kind of an indicator to the group that we were heading off schedule and the day was probably going to change.
Caught up with another friend of mine in San Antonio that added extra layers of complexity, noting that the car then was full.
Don called him losing his mind as we're going to the bar. Hey, here's the problem. All the PPOs are in here.
Team client is very upset. They will miss the meeting.
Our car was down to just a single driver, and as you can imagine, having some slightly intoxicated for the exercise. Clients in the car were absolutely feeding the driver. So this driver was having to make decisions on the fly and communicate with his team whilst
driving and navigating and trying to engage with us. And it was about this time that the team had to start really leaning on their handlers. So as part of the role play, we had 2 handlers involved that they could liaise through. But again, as the day went on, the handlers became less and less helpful to the team.
Adding in more grey, it was no longer sort of black and white decision making. There was some grey area decisions in there where the trainees had to decide how they wanted to handle it and how they wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
There was probably this 1 20-minute period where we'd requested to go to a certain location. The team had decided that was a really bad idea, not just for our scheduling, but for our image. And this is probably where the team fell apart just for a short period of time. There was a lot of argument amongst the group, I guess, particularly on their chat, around, are we going to allow this group of principals to do what they want to do, or are we going to push them back to doing what they wanted us to do?
And to their credit, they did come back as a team. They made a collective decision. They stood by that decision. They justified it to us as the clients, and they carried it out. So, is it right or wrong? That's not always going to be that simple to understand. But what we really did like is that we saw them go through their process. The team leader at that stage stood up and took that responsibility and drove the team in the direction that he wanted
in that situation, and I think they handled it perfectly.
At this point, we had given the brief that there was to be a 7 o'clock video call for the principals, and that was a hard and firm appointment they had to meet. It caused them to make a decision when it became very apparent that we weren't going to make that appointment, and we had absolutely no intention of making that appointment, and that we were going to push through that 7 o'clock finish time. So I think the team, 6 o'clock, they're thinking, okay, this is the end. We're going to have dinner. We're done for the day. Once it became apparent that wasn't the case, you started to see the mental fatigue kick in.
Yep.
You started to see the heat of the day take its effect. You started to see the boredom kick in for the ones that had been, not in the primary roles to that point. All of that had a pretty significant impact, I guess, on the attitude of the group and how that played out for them. So from there, with the day pretty much derailed, and I guess the team resigned to the fact that they weren't going to win, we went for some Mexican dinner. Of course, we had some more cocktails. It'd be rude to come to a Mexican restaurant and not have a margarita or 2.
And a handful of tequila shots.
Yep.
That were quite visible to the team.
Correct. So from dinner, we obviously found ourselves at another bar. Our local team over here had done an amazing job in securing these environments for us through their local connections. So we basically had access to an entire bar, essentially full of role players, where we had permission to basically do whatever we want, right? So we were able to stage a bar fight. We were able to have some solicitations. We were able to, I guess, really put them out of their comfort zone. It was a bit of a dive bar, loud music, made it hard for the team to communicate. Certainly not an environment that probably the majority of the people in the team would choose to frequent. So just pushing them out of their environment.
De-escalation was fantastic. When we did have the bar fight, they got in there and they handled it in a really subtle yet professional and effective way.
We threw a bunch of scenarios at them, and at around about 11 p.m, we called Index, and we got the team to, I guess, relax for a little bit. We gave them an opportunity to debrief amongst themselves for a little while, and then we pulled them in for an after-action review as a group. We talked about what was the professional checkups on the team through the day. Was everybody performing? Was everybody happy in their role and understanding their requirements? And then we went around the group and asked for individual feedback. We asked for 1 good and 1 bad point from everybody in the group, and it was fascinating to hear everybody kind of identified the same things we'd identified. So it wasn't a hard teaching point then for us, because they'd already identified the issues that we wanted to address. Everything that was identified was something that had been delivered through the week. And I guess it was probably the stress and the stimulus that we'd added that made people forget to activate those parts of the plan. But we really think that's an effective way to learn. They'll walk away with a ton of reference material, templates, guidelines, examples of things that we use in the real world. So they've got access to those things as they go through their future operations. They get a written letter of reference from us, and given that it was so real world like, it's easy for us to provide that. And we also give feedback on areas that may need to be worked on a little bit more, or things that they could, benefit from more training in. to advance their skill sets. And I guess from my perspective, what's really, really exciting is that every single one of the participants on this particular group have been offered the opportunity for employment with us down the track. Every single one of them demonstrated the skills, the character, the attitude, and the aptitude that Empire Protection demands of its people. I couldn't be more impressed to have a relatively large group and have every single one of those people be employable by our standards.
Which doesn't happen every time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely not. But we really look forward to working with absolutely everybody that came through this program. I'm absolutely humbled by the quality of people that have been here that want to listen to us talk. What an awesome experience for us. Amazing to spend a week in San Antonio. Amazing to be in Texas. Amazing to be in America. And amazing to spend a week with a group of people like this that I think are now going to become lifelong colleagues and friends.
100%. Hopefully we'll see you on the next one. Cheers.